Welcome everybody. Uh, I so I last month, as some of you know, I've been working on launching this fundraise accelerator, and so I saw that Shan had applied for it, and we got on a call last month. I kind of went into it fairly blind, and within about the first 2 minutes, I was like taken aback that this guy is on a different level of entrepreneur and founder based on his experience, his accomplishments. Um, and then when he started telling me more about the business, I basically said, you definitely don't need my help. If anything, I should be asking you for fundraising advice. And the call essentially ended with me saying that it's businesses like yours, Shan, that give me hope for VR because you've really unlocked something special with the power of this technology. And the one more point, you told me that you had just moved to Las Vegas to be near your parents. Like, if
Yep.
my memory serves me correct, I think you said they're in their 90s.
Yeah.
And we bonded over, I had just moved to Florida to be near my parents as well. So I love kind of this preface of family oriented, also very good at business. And then you have a passion for AR and VR. And really, for all the founders that are going to join us today, I think we all feel very similar about those three things that they're critically important.
Yeah.
I
Thank,
started
thank
doing
you.
some Sorry, go for it.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you for the kind words. I'm blown away. But thank you for your kindness.
Well, not only am I kind to you, but Chicagoland Entrepreneur Hall of Fame was kind to you. KPMG was kind to you. Illinois gave you the Entrepreneur of the Year in 1998. Your Crane's 40 under 40. You're in YPO. Graduated Harvard. So I feel like a lot of people have been kind to you over the years, and I'm sure you've returned the favor. Your resume is ridiculously incredible, and not only do you have all the awards, but you have three exits. And so that's what we're hoping to talk about today is kind of your basic story for the first 20 to 25 minutes or so.
Okay.
And then everyone in the audience is a serious founder about AR VR. They've either raised money or they're in the process of raising money. Some of the people in the audience today that I, look through the names are doing millions in revenue from AR VR. They've raised millions. And then some of the other ones have sold businesses for upwards of 100 million plus. Shout out Tom. And then some of them are trying to kind of get started and figure out how you do the whole seed round thing. So
Yeah.
it's a really good group of people, and we're very thankful for your time and for joining us. And for everyone in the audience, please think through some questions that are about fundraising, general business, and try to ask Shan once we open up the floor for Q&A so that your questions are beneficial to the whole group. All right, so I'm going to stop talking and pass the mic over to the featured guest here. But Shan, can you maybe start with the story that you shared a little bit with me originally around how you had the motorcycle incident, and then how you turned that into your business that kind of, I believe, eventually led to being on the NASDAQ. It was that specific company.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm happy to. I had just sold a company, and it was a software company. I was taking a year off, and China was changing rapidly. And this is like in 1990. And this is in 1989, doing Tiananmen Square and all stuff. And obviously everything was moving. And so I figured that a lot of China was not going to be the same 10 years or 15 years later, as it's not. On that journey, I was going about 80 kilometers an hour, and I was riding a motorcycle, and it hit a concrete embankment as opposed to these are narrow roads. So there's really no choice. There was a truck coming that was too big for it, and so anyways, my motorcycle got trashed. Fortunately, I got flipped forward. Uh, Long result, I was really, really in bad shape. And the only reason I survived is I was near the border with Vietnam, and Vietnam and China did not have great relationships at that point. And so there's a military hospital. It's probably the only trauma center within like 200 or 300 miles. And someone from that hospital was driving by on the road. They saw me. They were kind enough to pick me up, took me there. I spent about a month in China and then a month in the States, and you know, patience is not one of my virtues. So, I sort of have a affectionate form of ADD. And so I was going crazy in the hospital. And I was though on 7 different infusions simultaneously every day for all the different stuff. And they said, look, Shane, you either need to stay in the hospital for another month, or you have a choice. You can, we'll discharge you, but you have to go to an infusion clinic every day because the types of therapies that you're getting require institutional grade equipment, and we need to be able to monitor you. And so I said, okay. And I opted for the infusion clinic model, and I hated it. And then afterwards, I said, this is really a terrible patient experience, and there's got to be a better way. And so uh, at Harvard, just as a background, my degree was in biology, focus was in neurobiology. Harvard doesn't have minors. It's just a major or concentration. If they did, mine would have been applied math programming. So I had the skill sets, and I designed the first truly ambulatory infusion pump. Prior to that, they were about the size of a shoebox, and you see them in hospitals. I shrank that down to the size of an iPhone. It could do everything that the hospital pumps could do. Uh, 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 and it could be used in the patient's home. And we solved the monitoring problem by doing voice over data protocols over copper wires. This is before the internet. And so we solved the issue of being, we could, back in the days when people had landlines, we could call them up, and the pump was also tied to the landline. And while we were talking to them, we can check their compliance, change the therapy, up or down or whatever we needed to do. And so it really it was a real breakthrough. The funny part was that initially everyone thought that the apocalypse had come with this suggestion. I mean, you hear the most ridiculous objections like, well, what happens if the dog eats the infusion pump? Well, I mean, that could happen, but I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of theoreticals, and so we fought through all that, and ultimately took the company to revenues in the high 8 figures, and went public on NASDAQ. At our peak, our market cap was about 500 million, and then sold the company to Baxter. A few bumps in the road, but overall, it's just part of entrepreneurialism, and to me. We helped really accelerate the growth of the home infusion industry, which now everyone takes for granted. And all those people no longer have to go to an infusion clinic or have to go to a stay in a hospital. And the most rewarding part to me, I mean, there was certainly all the success of acknowledgement and financial and all those things, but the letters that I would get from patients in terms of saying that, thank you so much for this product. And it's really improved my quality of life, and just very emotional testimonials. And so it really, that's over my career, this is the company I'm starting now is my 7th company. And as I've gone through, as a kid who came from the Virgin Islands, wrong side of the tracks, I left college with $500 in a 1967 Chevy Malibu. So there wasn't a whole lot of family money to stake me or any of those types of things. I started my first company right out of college with a partner, and have never worked for anyone over my career. And those 6 companies prior to this one was a consumer products company, one was a software company, and the other 3 were healthcare companies, 2 medical devices and 1 tech-enabled services. And to your point, I had sold the last one to a strategic, and I was retired in 2016, and came out here to Vegas. And the retirement's a funny thing, right? Because I hike about 3 hours every morning. You then go do some other weights and stuff. You call your buddies, you read a newspaper article or two, or so. And it's 11 o'clock. Now what? I don't drink and I don't play golf, and and I don't gamble. There's not a whole lot else to do in Vegas until I discovered hiking later on. but after 6 months, I was climbing the walls and uh, figured out, and I'm not a super smart entrepreneur like a Steve Jobs who, can really be a visionary and see products that people don't even know that they will want. I'm much more of a C student when it comes to that. I need to see a problem and then create a solution for it and make sure the solution is efficacious and scalable and all those types of things. And so we started Harvard MedTech to really focus. One of the tall poles in the tent that was really challenging for the healthcare system and for our country in general was the whole opioid epidemic. A lot of bad actors led us down a path. In 2010, 11, and 12, they were handing these things out like popcorn to patients, and uh, for a while it seemed good, but as I looked at it, I mean, I just basically I looked at it, and the neurobiologist in me just sort of peeled back the layers, and what I found was that the whole opioid thing was a kind of a crock of nonsense. All they really do, they don't fix anything, and all they really do is get you loopy and high, and so you don't feel your pain per se. Problem is over time you build up resistance, so you keep taking more and more and more, and then you become dysfunctional at some point. More people have died from the opioid epidemic than even the pandemic, and it's still continuing to this day. And so so I asked, why are these things prescribed? Well, they're cheap, the patients seem to like them, and they seem to get the job done. And Purdue has produced all this data. These are not addictive drugs, and blah 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 blah, all of which was nonsense. And opioids to me are like if your doctor told you to take 4 shots of tequila every 4 hours. You're not going to be feeling much pain, and you're going to be in a good mood. But at some point, you'll crash and burn and burn. And we really haven't done anything for you. In fact, we've probably increased your rate of dependence. It was really just extreme. It was really a tragedy how all that happened. And so I set out to look at that. I said, okay, I need to come up with a clean piece of paper, no preferences, a non-narcotic way for people to manage their pain. And then as we looked at that in terms of the phenotype of the patient and what else is needed in order from product development perspective, we actually we broadened the scope of the company, and we positioned it as a company that helps people who have suffered from trauma. Trauma can be a workplace accident, it can be a car crash, it can be a physical assault, it can be a combat situation. People suffer trauma in all sorts of ways. And what we found was that for trauma patients, they have physical symptoms like pain, which is why they're taking the opioids. But they also have a significant behavioral health comorbidities. They kind of go hand in hand. So on the emotional side, these patients are all struggling with anxiety, depression, PTSD, poor sleep architecture, and each patient is a unique. Someone may have more anxiety, someone may have more depression. So we needed to have a flex model that could scale and that could do mass customization for the needs of that patient. And once again, minimal to no pharmaceuticals, definitely no narcotics. So it took about a year to put together the product and the program. We launched in 2019. We initially were in the workers' compensation space as a modality for patients who had been injured as a way for them to treating themselves from the time they had the accident until the time of surgery, let's say, for example, by using our program so they're never exposed to narcotics. And the pain relief level is just as powerful as a narcotic. It's about 50% pain relief. And that's all based on the programming. And we're really just leveraging the distraction principle that's been around since the beginning of time almost. At least from mothers recognize that if you get a kid who's bawling and screaming, you give them a lollipop, and all of a sudden everything is happy and gone away. And so that's a silly example, but it's that on a massive scale. And going back to the other behavioral health issues, if you don't address them, I learned this in previous companies, that for chronic patients, you can take a single point approach, just treating the medical issue. Chronic patients have a lot of comorbidities, and if you don't treat them holistically and tackle them as a system, you really won't be able to move the needle, the dial on that patient for a long time. So, and in workers' comp, because it has the highest margins. I always go for businesses that or industries that have higher margins. It allows you to be stupid and make a few mistakes, which is always helpful.
So was that okay? So two questions. One, um, okay, so let's bring it to entrepreneurship before we dive into the VR therapeutic side of stuff, because there's a
Okay.
lot to unpack there. So it sounds like, in summary, you had this motorcycle accident. You already had been successful along the course of your career, starting companies. You saw a clear problem because you were the one that needed these injections. And so you decided that, hey, I can probably use my technical skills to build a little device that patients can take home with them and basically inject themselves. And then that went on to the NASDAQ. What
Yeah.
is that like, starting a company with $0 of revenue, and then it gets to 80, 90 million, whatever it is, and it's valued at 500 million? Like, how
Yeah.
insane is that for your personal life to manage that?
Yeah. I mean, look, entrepreneurship is hard. It is hard because there's lots of obstacles. I think the number one criteria for a successful entrepreneur is perseverance. I've been, yes, like on that company or all of my other companies, I've initially done seed rounds, which is sort of people who I know, ultra high net worth individuals. And that's obviously become easier over my career. Like for this company, we raised about $20 million for our seed fund. And that was all people saying, "Hey, Shane, you're
Right.
back to doing something, and we want a piece of it." And so, but I've had lots of rejection, and my heart goes out to entrepreneurs, because the average person doesn't realize how hard it is. You have product issues, you have scaling issues, you've got money issues. You're trying to change a way of thinking. I mean, you're trying to create a transformative event, and that always takes some level of time, and especially in healthcare is slow. You will have your classic early adopters, midstream, and then the laggards, if you will. And healthcare, should be slow, but doctors are also very skeptical, and rightfully for the patient's interest. So you have to really show them the data and the science in order to be able to sell them.
Okay, so now moving to the healthcare side. So the workers' comp is your beachhead market.
Yep.
That's the first place you start selling to.
Yep.
Um, how do you evolve from that to
Yeah.
where you're at today? And can you also give some highlights around where your revenue is today and what's kind of like the current model of your customer base?
Yeah, so with the workers' comp market, and here's an interesting data point, it's done state by state, like the auto insurance market, whereas other like Medicare or is a national program. So each state has their own rules. So it's a big market. It's about $60 billion a year. Half of that is on medical spend. And the patient population was as a percentage, all these people have suffered trauma from work. I mean, we're not, that they're not covering up our diabetes or asthma or all these other issues, strictly an injury at work or on the way to and back from work. And we initially only got about 20% approvals for prescriptions that we got doctors to write, and 80% denials. Um, Today, in the states where we first started, it's 80% approval rates. And on average across the country, it's north of 50%. We achieved that through a lot of what I would just call low cost marketing. We did a lot of CEU webinars. We did a lot of wrote a lot of papers in industry journals. We have a great medical advisory board. Our advisory board includes the head of neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins, the chief physician officer of a Geisinger Health System, and on and on and on. And so that was also really helpful. Once we sort of got our sea legs and the program was working really well, we were asked to apply for and we got a contract with the VA. The VA population has very similar issues. Most of them have, as a result of service related injuries, a lot of them have pain, but they also have a lot, it's a crisis almost because VA can't have enough access, can't provide enough access to these vets. So like in a lot of VAs, for your first appointment, it's a 6 month waiting time. I mean, if someone is emotionally challenged, it's not a good idea to tell them to go away and come back in 6 months. I mean, that's the whole, they're suffering in misery in the meantime. And it's no surprise they're veteran
And
suicide rates
is that
are going
waiting time because there's not a therapist they can talk to? Okay. And so they need some sort of supplement for that therapist.
Yeah, exactly. And then,
Gotcha.
and in our program, when we talk about it, you'll understand that we're providing the behavioral health support that patient needs, as well as helping them with their pain relief. And so what the VA was in most need of, especially in small towns and rural areas, was more accessibility. They also recognize that in terms of the more stuff that can be delivered in the veteran's home is really beneficial to the vet because like for example in West Virginia or a lot of states, it can be a very long drive to get to a couple hour drive to get to the nearest VA. And, so a 4 or 5 hour journey every week for something is pretty patient unfriendly. And so our program came in as a perfect force multiplier for them because they could check off the box in terms of access. They could have the vets start to receive attention right away. And with the VA, we've grown tremendously. I think we have at this point 40. There's 100. The VA system is 186 hospitals surrounded by 1,400 clinics. And out of the 186 hospitals, we now have 30 of them prescribing regularly, and we have another 10 that are in the earlier stages. With each one of these things, doctors want to see how their patients do. So the cycle always is we'll get a few scripts. With good outcomes, then all of a sudden they'll prescribe more. They'll tell their colleagues about it, and so it virally spreads within the institution. We crossed our 10 million run rate earlier this year in Q2. In 4 years for a medical device company with only 20 million of funding to get to profitability is unheard of. When I've talked to institutional investors, they sort of because our comparables are some of the related examples are there's a company called Paratherapeutics. It was really more of a software app, but it was kind of lumped in the same space. We were in, they raised about $1 billion. They were around for about 15 years, I think, and then they went bankrupt last year. And they never achieved the revenues that we have. Another one is Achille, who was a digital health play for ADHD. They raised effectively about $450 million, half of that from a SPAC that they merged into. And they effectively went back, closed shop earlier this year. They only had cash on hand, and they I think like 10 million left or 16. I forget the numbers. I shouldn't throw them out there, but whatever it was, that was what they were valued at and got stock in a pharmaceutical company. So basically, the shareholders didn't do very well on that because yeah. So in that environment, it's very, very difficult because these people have come ahead of you and they have follow the classic VC model. And sort of the first thing I would say is that every VC thinks they're an expert on something, but frankly, most of them are not, but they like to pretend that they are. Also, VCs are not terribly innovative. It's really much more of what motivates them is FOMO, fear of missing out, as well as there's very much of a lemming mentality. It's safer to be investing when everyone else is investing in a market, so that if your investment goes south, you're not criticized by your partners as much. And uh, uh, so for us, as far as I know, we are the only digital therapeutics company who has crossed that $10 million run rate and crossed into profitability. So that was a real nice milestone for us.
So you've raised 20 million. This will be the last question. Everyone start to think of some questions and then raise your hand. But so you've raised your 20 million and you're talking about, VCs, it's a tough process to get them to buy in. Is that funding from other sources than traditional VCs?
It was from smaller VCs, people who could put in a $1 to $2 million check. So we had three institutional invest, but even there's personal relationships where I knew some of the partners and all that stuff. Most of it came from ultra high net worth individuals. I think the average check size was $250,000, and this was not solicitation by me. All of a sudden, I show up on LinkedIn a lot after we launched the company, obviously. And all of I've been in healthcare for 30 years, and people are kind to me. They basically just said, Shane, in terms of, we hear you're up to something else, would like to participate. So, talk them through the book and the evaluation. It was done on safe notes. So it made it easier. And then it, so they're really, I can't share their names obviously, but really ultra high net worth individuals whose names you would recognize in healthcare. Um, uh, 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 and then we're doing our first institutional round. This will be a $10 million round at a 50 million pre-money valuation. And we still own a significant part of the company, put it that way, on it. And I think this will be the only round of financing we'll need to do, because the business is throwing off cash now. And really the funding that we're looking for is for sales and marketing and product and further product enhancements.
Is your
And
goal to take it public, or you think you'll do this raise and then kind of just cash flow it for the next?
I did exactly the latter, because going public, I've run a public company, and the environment has changed since then. But I really believe that unless you can justify a $1 to $2 billion market cap, you have no business being public, because you'll never get the analyst coverage because you're not important enough to the ecosystem. And so without that analyst coverage, it's very hard to get the results that you want to have on stuff. Also, with running a public company, a lot of times we made decisions on a quarterly basis because of meeting our numbers. I mean, if you miss your numbers, your stock gets cut in half, or diminished. I'm probably using an extreme example. And that just didn't seem, the right way to really grow a business fast. And so being private allows us to do what's right for the business versus what people are expecting us to do. From
Also, for someone that was retired and hikes 3 hours a day, I think going back to running a public company sounds like the worst thing ever for your
Yeah,
lifestyle.
it really is. It's a
Yeah.
horrible job.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah,
All right, well, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, there's like so much, there's so many parts to this onion to pull back, but I think one of the things that we're really thankful for is that you have run a public company, raised, 100 million, whatever it is, build a company to 500 million. Like you've done all this stuff that a lot of people here want to do. And
yeah.
so, let's try to go through some questions from the founders in the audience
Okay.
and get some feedback from you around maybe not specifically their business, but if you can apply it to general business lessons in the way that you answer it, that would be really helpful so that the 60 people all get something out of your answers.
Okay.
Um, I'm going to start with Sid because I know Sid is building something in the healthcare space. And so you'll be probably a really good person to answer this. So Sid, do you want to come up here first, and then Gregory will go to you and start left to right?
Absolutely. Thank you, Don, for hosting. And Shan, thank you so much for doing this. I think it's great to hear somebody else using XR technologies in healthcare settings. So just to give you some context, I'm the founder of NovoBeing.
Yeah.
We are also an XR-based therapeutics platform company based here in Boston. Been doing this for about a little bit over 3.5 years now, 4 years.
Okay.
We're in partnerships with 6 healthcare systems. We're clinically validated to reduce stress, anxiety, depression, and PTSD using XR therapeutics in a
Okay.
couple of different populations and an inpatient setting. And we also
Okay.
have a project with the VA in Pittsburgh.
Oh,
So
great.
very familiar with a whole host of other companies in the space, including Pear, Akili that you mentioned.
Yeah.
One of our advisors is actually from Applied VR. He used to work at Applied VR, I guess,
Mhm.
in the commercialization side. So very familiar with the whole industry. I
Yeah.
think we're probably one of the only companies in the XR therapeutics space I've heard of that's made over $10 million in recurring revenue. So
Yeah.
kudos and congratulations. I have so
Thank
many
you.
questions, but I want to start with like the top three that I have in mind. One is, are you pursuing like a virtual clinic model or is it a pure prescription only play? So,
Yeah, we don't have to have a prescription for our product. We have made it a business practice to do so, mainly because it's important that for insurance reimbursement purposes, for example, in workers' comp and stuff, you want to have a physician who believes enough so that the adjuster will listen to their pitch and will say yes, hopefully. Um, uh,
so you don't have to have a virtual clinic like Karuna Labs, for example, but you can just have prescriptions.
yeah,
Okay, that's great. And
yeah.
and how much? I know VA is obviously its own unique health system in the country, and the
Mhm.
way you sell into and commercialize into VA is a whole very different than how you commercialize into traditional health systems. How
Yeah.
much of that percentage of revenue, if you could share, is coming from the VA versus not? Because I think the model that we took to the VA may not be the same that it could work in someplace else.
Yeah, yeah. Our revenues at the current time from the VA are about two-thirds of our revenue. And the
Okay.
other one-third is still from workers' comp. We only got the VA contract 18 months ago, and it's been a really aggressive push. But you're absolutely right. It requires, look, every market, you can't if you really want to be at the cutting edge of or in the top tier, you have to treat each market separately. There are idiosyncrasies, there's value propositions, all that kind of stuff is going to be different market by market. We prefer to go into markets where there's high margins. VA it's a lower margin, but we get paid by them in advance. So from a cash flow perspective, it's really advantageous. We also have a similar thing with the DoD, which we just got for active duty personnel, and we're gearing up to go after that market, and we're exactly going through that process right now to figure out in terms of and I'm a big believer in having Sherpas help you. Like there's a retired Rear Admiral, Louis Tripoli, who his last job was he was the CMO of the Navy in the Indo-Pacific Theater. Big job. That's where 52% of the Navy is. And so he's helping us, and we do that with other consultants as well. But it's really important to not just sort of say that one size fits all, because it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. And one last question, I promise.
Sid, I gotta, let me circle back to you after. We
Sure.
got a lot of people with hands
All
up. I
right.
want to make sure I get through them, but
Sure,
I
absolutely.
appreciate it. But if we have time, then I'll circle back. Okay.
That's good.
All right. Sorry. We want to be respectful of his time. We got to make sure he's a busy man. All right, Gregory, what is up? Hello, hello.
Hello. Hi,
Hey,
Shane.
Gregory.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And hello, Sid. Uh, it's a small world. My first question actually was regarding Novo Being, but I'll skip that
Yeah.
and just jump into it. I am fascinated that it appears that you've got this coded for reimbursement from the insurance companies. And we've been kind of exploring that for a few years now. It seems like a breakthrough for VR and XR.
Mhm.
So if you could explain that a little more, and if you think is that something you've done uniquely, um, and will that allow it to go into the broader consumer healthcare system?
Yeah, you've asked, first of all, nice to meet you, Gregory. And you asked a couple of different questions. Let me try to address them. I think that in terms of the reimbursement that we have gotten, yes, we have gotten reimbursement, and it's very nicely. I mean, our gross margins are on the 70 to 75% range, and I can't share all of it because our competitors have not, frankly, and I don't want to give away, not because of any not saying anything negative about the audience, but just sort of that's part of our special sauce.
Understood. Yeah.
My last company took care of chronic patients on behalf of HMOs around the country. Our biggest customer was Humana, a lot of Blues plans. The Blues of New York were our lead investor. So a lot of those plans ultimately ended up outsourcing the smaller ones, all management to us. So we became the medical management arm for these smaller health plans, 500,000 members or less. Actually, usually around 100 to 200,000. And that gave me they outsourced medical management to us, and that gave me a really good window into how you craft the arguments for medical economics and why they should cover your product. And it's not it's not trivial, but it's really the advantage there is this sort of knowledge of the insurance industry that's very helpful to us. I think also that in your question about the commercial space, yes, we do plan to go into the commercial space. Right now, the markets that we're in, the TAM is probably about $3 billion, and commercial is going to be more. And so it's a big sandbox. And one of the things I want to make sure we do is, we don't sacrifice quality for the sense of scaling on it. I never believed the growth at all costs as being the only metric. I mean, when I started hearing about that in 2020 and 2021, it seemed so much like the dot-com thing. Oh yeah, we're not making money, but we'll get more eyeballs, and with volume we'll make money. Yeah, right. Okay. I mean, maybe that happens in some cases, but usually that's not a good formula, I think. And so, we're launching into commercial healthcare can mean a lot of things. It can be everything from group health, which is like insurance like you or I would be on. Also, it can be Medicaid populations like dual eligibles who are extremely sick, special needs populations. And so we're focusing on a certain segment of plans with a demonstration project of a small size at a reduced rate. And then health plans always trust data from their own population much more so than they will randomized clinical trials. And the reason, I mean, when I was in that position, I'm not saying you shouldn't do this. You absolutely should. But I just found that when I was in that position, and some guy would come in and show me this fancy outcomes trial, and the guys from Johnson and Johnson, I'm telling him, look, your N is about 100. I can almost guarantee that you probably did 5 or 10 of these studies, and one of them turned out well, and that's the one that you're showing me. And so and so there's a natural skepticism because their whole thing is not to pay out as an
Right.
insurance. They try to avoid it at all costs. And so by doing these demonstration projects with their own populations, where they do have a full line of sight into cost and all the other stuff, that will carry a lot more weight. And so we're going to do these in the commercial market at 50 to 100 patient trials with a number of health plans and sort of cut our teeth and refine the model. And then from there continue to grow.
Okay, thank you. I would love to get your advice offline to this in detail because, like I said, it's we're working on
I
a.
help you out. Greg, I gotta keep moving.
Okay.
I love
All
you.
right.
I gotta keep
Thank
it
you.
going here, buddy.
Thank you.
Sorry. All right, no worries. Nick, what's up? Come on up here, bud. Go for it.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, Shane, thank you so much for being here. This is really great intel. I'm in a similar space. I'm working on an immersive arts for wellness platform. So we're targeting mental and emotional health through VR. We started in focusing on TBI and PTSD populations, using creative expression as a means of exploration and working through self-awareness and identity. Since we are moving towards other populations and kind of more of a broad immersive arts for wellness application. So again, similarly, I'd love to talk sometime offline. But my question is really, when we're looking at raising capital and looking at trying to align some of the research that needs to be done in this space, what are kind of the 2 or 3 most important aspects of raising capital or building those relationships with what we're doing?
Yeah, first of all, let me say that for Gregory or Sid, as well as you, Nick, Don has my contact information, my email. If there's stuff that I'm more than happy to. I mean, people help me along the way, and it's kind of my responsibility in terms of paying it forward. And so would love to be helpful. So don't hesitate to reach out. We can talk about all this stuff in more in depth. And so I'm sorry, Nick, repeat your question again so I make sure that I fully understand.
Yeah, so just from where we're at, kind of early stage, we're working on, we need to navigate kind of the research and results aspect of it, building relationships with universities, fundraising around research, but then also operational funding. What are kind of the 2 or 3 most important things for us to be considering and thinking about?
Yeah, I think that you're at a pretty early stage of it, and I think either like a seed or pre-seed fund would be one way to go for institutional investors. I think the other thing though is that if you can involve in your outcomes or your research and stuff, the the right doctors, if you will, at and look, the ABC game is you can make it. I can make a strong argument that MIT or UCal Berkeley are just or great schools, but more importantly, they have a great cachet because of their names, and so. Try to attach yourself to KOLs who have credibility, and then also in terms of I don't know what your personal network is like, but the easiest first 250,000, 500,000 you're going to raise without having to go through a lot of it. And especially right now, the market for medical devices and digital therapeutics is horrible. It's been the toughest fundraising environment since 2008 or 2001. And so I think a lot of these smaller VC funds are going out of business because they were never able to raise their second fund because of the poor results. And then a lot of the other VC funds are not investing in new companies because they're worried that their current portfolio companies will not be able to access funding, and they will need to step into the breach to do that. So it's really a terrible time. I might be giving you very different advice, Nick, if this was 2020. And the Wild West of those 2 years or 2.5 years. So I think that on both on the product side and stuff, it really even if you just get them to be an advisor to your stuff, something that's not going to take a lot of time, but then you have the ability to latch their name in association with your company, and that'll really be very helpful to you. Also in fundraising, when you go to an institutional round, it'll carry a lot of weight. But for right now, I would use safe notes because there's no argument about evaluation on that. They're just going to convert automatically into the first institutional round you do. It'll make it a lot easier. Pay them 7 to 8% interest in PIK. So it's not really costing you any cash, and that just all and give them a discount to like let's say they will convert at a rate 75% of the price that the lead paid. So yes, so there's ways to get creative around that stuff, but I think in this environment, that's really the best way of being able to raise money on a rapid basis at your stage of development.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Happy to help.
Thank you. And thank you, Shane, for being willing to chat with people after. We appreciate that very much. Thank you. Daron, come on up here, bud. You want to give a quick question here? I just want to make sure we're getting Shane out of here on time.
Sure. Thank you, Don, and thank you, Shane, for this. It's great. We're doing Float VR, which is we're doing generative environments, ever changing and infinite, for that activate the meditative states through fascination rather than concentration. So, and we're also working with therapists and in that space as well, working with Float. And so from that, I was wondering, first of all, when you were working with VAs, whether you saw any resistance to using VR, whether it was like an easy thing, whether they were enthusiastic about it, or whether there was a thing there. And also whether there's a way for consumers, like for myself, for example, to experience your product, or is it only strictly medical?
It's only strictly medical application right now. The consumer market, that's not our core competency. And if you were to ask me on a roadmap, there's so many more things. Maybe that's 4 or 5 years out. It's just not in the critical path right now. And I'm sorry, Daron, what was your other question?
How is VR being accepted by VAs?
Oh,
Whether
yeah.
yeah.
In a way, it's actually easier with the VA docs because they don't have to worry about the payer. The VA is already guaranteed it. Commercial docs are very much afraid of, especially if they're on panels, are very much afraid of what insurance companies think of them. Because if the insurance companies don't like that doc, they will stop sending them cases in states where you can direct care. And so you have that added complexity. On the other hand side, the VA is more receptive because they like to address all these needs in terms of access for vets and all that stuff, and the doctors don't have to worry about getting on a blacklist somewhere. They just use it, and that's been part of the uptake. But even there, it's not like all of a sudden the floodgates open. Getting from the time we first have a meeting to closing a VA, whether it's writing scripts, is usually a 3-month to 6-month process. Usually 3 months, but it can be up to 6 months. And the VA has all sorts of different departments and stuff that have been set up for different things, and so some of those are going to be easier to get access to than otherwise. So I think in terms of convincing the docs, the technology and the outcomes are persuasive both to the VA and to the commercial docs. But in terms of with the commercial docs, you had the other hurdle in terms of making sure that they're comfortable that the insurance companies won't hate them.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yep.
And I would love to follow up later.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
Wealth of knowledge. Chris, come on up here. Go for it, bud.
Great. Thanks a lot, guys. You've answered quite a few questions, but I've got one here a little bit specific to my company. So we're currently we're building a generative AI tool that allows you to describe anything you want, and it will generate in less than 30 seconds a 3D model directly into the VR headset. And we've been looking at this with multiple uses. It could be for prototyping, quick sort of like presentations and things like that across so many disciplines. My background's engineering and aerospace. But having looked at lots of healthcare, and we've been doing lots of healthcare, we started to see whether or not there could be a potential for people that have visual hallucinations, who want to be able to describe what they've seen and be able to maybe actually describe it and it generates in front of them. Now, there's two things to that. That could add to the trauma, but at the same time, it could also help them get an understanding that they're seeing something that's not real, even though it's there, and then get empathy from maybe a therapist or something like that. Do you see that could be a market for what we're designing and building?
To give you a really good answer, Chris, I would need to learn more about what you're doing. And I'd be happy to do that on it. But
Yeah.
I don't want to give you just shoot from the hip on something unless I really understand. Because you're talking about applicability in healthcare and where it would go. So it sounds very interesting, but I would love to learn a little bit more. So please contact me after.
Yeah. Well, we're connected on LinkedIn the other day, so I'll send some links over. We're just literally doing the prototype now and showcasing it on Monday, so we'll send that over. But thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. James, power through. James, we got 7 minutes.
Mine's super quick.
Shane has a ton, so I just want to make sure we can get through the last 4. So power through, bud.
Of course, I appreciate you coming on, Shane.
Yeah.
Thank you for all your insight and your story. It's just incredible. My question is about something you mentioned earlier about employing low-cost marketing strategies, like going to events and talking, as opposed to like traditional marketing. And then you talked about leveraging your university associations to meet those high net worth individuals and kind of grow your network. Do you feel those low-cost marketing techniques doubled in helping you make those connections, or were they two entirely separate?
I think there were two entirely separate, but related, because it was born out of necessity. When we went to market in 2020 for a medical device company, it was like the worst possible timing. Because the way medical device companies work is that you go pitch a doc to prescribe your product, but then you got to see the doc. That was very difficult to do when all the hospitals and the clinics were on lockdowns. And so we decided that, okay, let's pivot and figure out ways to and these CEO webinars, and cost was a big constraint. I mean, taking out big ads and newspaper magazines and sell that stuff, that may make sense for a lot of people. I've never really been a big believer of that, because you're really spraying across, and I don't know if you can really get the ROI you want. So this was born out of how do we overcome the fact that we have to get in front of docs. And so we did webinars and CE webinars. We probably educated over the course of a year, over the course of 2 years, about 14,000 adjusters, nurse case managers, and other professionals. I mean, and usually for these webinars, for example, in workers' comp, you would have like 30 or 40 people showing up is a good crowd. After the second or third one, we were getting 500 to 700 people on these things, because the word sped virally, and so their colleagues wanted to see it and all that stuff. And the benefit to them is that they get CEUs credits, which they have to keep their license. So provide something of value to them, and make it a real learning experience. And it's a very low-cost way to raise a lot of awareness about your product in the marketplace. And so, but in terms of in all of these things, like for example, in terms of even designing your distribution structure, I personally believe in a very much of a hybrid model where you have maybe 25% of it as direct W-2s, and the rest are independent 1099 contractors who already have relationships with docs that we can leverage on. And guess what? It's a lot. Building a sales force is a very expensive proposition. Salaries you're going to be paying, or you won't recover your money at least for a year in terms of when that sales rep starts to break even, I think.
Thank you for the insight. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. But,
sorry, go for it. You could...
Yeah, I was going to say that in each market, just do your own analysis like that way, but figure out how can you be parsimonious, but yet be very effective in reaching the people you want to reach.
100%. Thank you so much.
I'm a huge fan of webinars. Shane, are you able to stay 5 extra minutes to get to the questions? And if not, we can do a speed round here. I just want to.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm back to back, Don. So
all right, no worries. All right, Karam has educated 150,000 students, and he's in 800 schools with headsets. So Karam, power through this, buddy. You might be the last one we can put in.
Yeah, thanks for your time. I'm gonna be super fast. So my question is about how to help my close friend. He has kind of like a rubber leg and has metal in his leg, and he's using marijuana a lot. He doesn't want to use a pill, so I checked this Harvard Med Tech, and I'm just like wonder, can we somehow like use some kind of your tech or like how to leverage the power of the brain to help him like release his pain? How should I apply? How can I use it? And like my second quick question: how did you prove 50 mil? Pre-money valuation when you were raising 10 mil. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the valuation, I mean, we just used comps in terms of out there. We hired a small investment bank, and part of their job is, they only really make money on success, and so they're very motivated. But we used their help to put a lot of that together. I think in terms of your other question, Zeron, was remind me again what that one was.
Yeah, so my friend is using marijuana to release his pain because he has some metal in his leg. And I just was curious about how to use this leverage the innate power of our brain. Where should we go? Like, how can I help my friend?
Yeah, I mean, right now, unfortunately, we're not available in commercial markets, it's and he would have to be injured underneath a work comp or a auto accident. We are also in the auto insurance markets. Same thing, big, nice niche market, high margins, which are the markets that we like, right? So, and if he doesn't have anything with the VA, that's fine. If you want, we can consider putting him on as a compassionate care patient, and just to help a fellow entrepreneur.
Yeah, thank you so much. I will follow up through them. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right, Sonia, Alex, Uli, we're not going to have time to get to the questions. We want to be respectful of Shane's time here. Shane, can you maybe for the whole group, before you sign off, just give us like, what's your one best bit of advice besides perseverance for founders in general?
Be frugal everywhere you can. Pretend you don't, even if you have a lot of money, pretend you don't have that money. You'll build a much more efficient a model. The other thing too is I would say is from the very beginning, think about building a scalable model. And that means in terms of something where you don't have to carry huge inventories. We buy our VR headsets off the shelf from Pico or DPVR or someone else like that. You don't have a long supply chain. But then also in terms of using distributors and other things, how can you get from point A to point B by spending the least amount of money? Because you never know. And then the third is that, if you're being offered money, even though you may not be happy with the valuation in this market, just grab it because there may not be another term sheet coming.
Yes, we agree with that one wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I mean, in other markets, like in 1995, when I was taking the pump company public, we raised an institutional round before that, and there it was an exciting environment, the exact polar opposite of today. And we had like 8 term sheets, and then we played them off against each other. In this environment, one is lucky to get 1 term sheet.
Yeah. Well said. Well, we're proud that you have your term sheet on the way. We're cheering for you. And thank you for coming to chat with us. I'll share your email or LinkedIn with people. We know you're busy, so this really does mean a lot. And you're doing a lot for VR, so thank you.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for providing the platform to be able to share with fellow entrepreneurs and hopefully help. Yeah.
It's inspiring. We'll keep you updated on everyone's journey. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Everyone, can we give a clap? Yeah.
Thank you.
Not the same. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, let's all right, everyone, we can unmute here.
Do you have a minute for advice?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Let me remove. I think I hate feeling pressured. I'm sorry for everyone that wasn't able to get their call. I'm going to see if I can start to figure out how to do 90-minute calls with some of the guests. I didn't feel comfortable asking for 90 minutes when we started this 6 months ago, but now that I kind of know how these go, I feel like if someone's open to it, it's worth asking. But thank you everybody for your questions. And yeah, let's do any thoughts or feedback on what you heard there, lessons you're taking away, or just general discussion with everybody.
That guy knows what's up.
Yeah, yeah, he does.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was really good. Like he was, yeah.
he knows what he's doing.
I think he's very sharp and also very disciplined. As far as going after the niche markets that are that bring in good money. But the two companies that he mentioned, Pear Therapeutics and Akili, those were the ones that raised a lot of money, and both of them crashed or almost crashed. I wanted to find out what was different with his company and why his company didn't crash, and how is he different from those other companies, because they're in a similar time frame, similar space. Do you have any thoughts?
I have an
I think
opinion on that.
yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Two-thirds of the revenue are coming from the VA.
Yeah, but
Bring it to the VA as a whole, it's a different. It's not easy, obviously, but once
Wait,
you're
let Nenea chat, because she had her first hand up there.
yeah, I just have an opinion on that a lot of the clinically focused applications, short shrift, the importance of engagement, which will drive the adherence. And it's very hard to tack on gamification. It actually has to be inherent to the design. And those of us who've worked in the games industry know that it's very difficult to even build out a well-balanced game, even with 250 developers and $100 million budget. And all of us have felt it. When a game's too easy, you get bored very quickly. And when it's too difficult, you get frustrated. And that really, I think, plus their pricing was all wrong once they went to market at Pear. I mean, there were a lot of lessons for us all to learn in that, but engagement is really critical. It cannot be tacked on with just some kind of resiliency score. It has to be designed from the very beginning.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wasn't he hinting a little bit on like the VC, like the growth at all cost kind of thing? I think he was talking about that in the same sort of area.
Yeah, I don't, there's a really good book, and maybe I can introduce you, Don, to my friend Ludovic, who has written this great book called Atomic Scaling, which is the opposite of the blitz scaling approach. And I think it's really valuable for today's time. He's a wonderful person. I worked with him for many years at Electronic Arts. And
He's
he's
the guy that is at Sony now, or was it Sony 5 years
he was at Sony, yeah.
Okay, I met him a few times. I would love to get reintroduced.
Yeah, I'd be happy to connect you because he's pumping his book right now, but there's a lot of great learnings for the time that we're in now. But I think a lot of it had to do with, like, if you break down each one specifically, Pear Therapeutics, when they went to market, their pricing was wrong for the actual market, and then the adherence was very low on the application. And so it was hard to get the providers to adopt it as well and operationalize it. And they had to kind of go back to the drawing board a couple of times. And then with Akili, I mean, they were making more off their consumer product. If you look at their S1 filings, than their clinical version of the app, but a lot of their revenue was driven by huge customer acquisition costs on the consumer side. And I was just talking to one of my investors at Mayfield the other day, and he said the drug of all consumer businesses is the dependency on paid ads to scale. And you really have to build in these network effects to work around it. And that goes back to the real gamification, right?
Yeah. And that was my second question I wanted to ask was, based on this, what was your regulatory strategy? How did you come up with that strategy? Or what was it? Did you guys figure out? Did he go to the FDA?
Yeah, that was actually my third question to him, because I was going to ask him about applied VR and their durable medical equipment sort of categorization after FDA clearance, but we didn't get to that part. But I assume that if the VA is using them, that I'm guessing that they have gotten
Didn't
FDA.
he say though they didn't need FDA? I thought he said that.
Yeah, he did.
He
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And you also spoke quite specifically about the RCTs versus actually doing direct proof of concept. So that indicates a lot about how they're thinking about regulation, which is not as much as other companies in the space would.
Yeah, no, I've spoken to Josh and those guys that applied, and like they can't change their product.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So then how are you going to drive adherence? It
And,
might work in the hospital one-off setting, but for in-home use and ongoing, you
Yeah.
have to be able to update your product.
That's true. That's true.
Mhm.
And also, but then his product is prescription only.
No,
Although
you might work with, well, you mean Josh's product, Applied
no,
V? Yes, yeah.
Shane's product.
No,
He said I asked him if it could be experienced by anybody outside the medical situation. He said no.
No, but
Yeah.
doctors can suggest stuff and they do it all the time in programs that don't have to be FDA approved, right?
Yeah.
That's true.
so
That's
he
true.
said
but
that it's their like policy, it's their preference, it's not the need. And
yeah, exactly.
the lack of availability in a commercial space is more of a commercial choice than a regulatory obligation. So that
Yeah.
I think it's a massive amount of flexibility for them and allows them to be really efficient and be really disciplined, like you said.
Well, and they
So
can
that-
charge more too because consumer pricing, it's more competitive.
Yeah.
There's
But
a company called Karuna Labs. If you are interested in the workers' comp area, they are commercializing their tech under the workers' comp monetizing, I guess, opportunity, and they are not FDA cleared. They're just FDA registered, which is anybody can register. their app on
Anybody
the-
can do that. It's like $900,
So
right?
I
You
think-
can get HSA approval with
Yeah.
that.
so here's the thing with the companies that failed, the Achille and the Pear Therapeutics, they had prescription only also.
Right.
Their products, that's how they introduced. They did a huge clinical trials, a lot of expense, a lot of money raised, and then they said, okay, this is going to be a therapeutic by prescription only, and they failed. And so
But
I
we're
wonder.
going in on the 510K classification of software as a medical device, which has some very hardcore restrictions on how frequently you can update your product.
Yeah.
And I think the FDA knows they need to evolve because there's going to be AI-driven products that couldn't even go to market under that. So they know they need to change. We personally made the decision not to focus on that because it would be too onerous for us to not be able to update our product and innovate at the same time. So I think it's sort of an opportunity, and Josh and Matthew, they made that choice, right, to go down and they're selling and they're making money. But it's a different approach, right? You're not, they don't have developers as much anymore. It's a sales team to sell in the channel and operationalize it, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Luke, you work with him. Do you have any thoughts on any of this, or just what you heard from the conversation for what you did here?
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, a lot of this is like understanding their own, specific medical strategies, whether it relates to FDA or just go to market generally, is relatively new to me. So no, it's been a great conversation, and honestly, I think a lot of the expert founders here have a lot more experience with this than I do.
Don, I will say he is right about the fundraising climate, though. It's really brutal. Yeah. And a lot of LPs just aren't even funding venture right now.
Yes. I think what I've been starting to mow over in like some of the trends I'm seeing on the fundraise side is that I think we're hearing this from more and more people. Number one, nothing is like it was 4 years ago. Everything is about revenue. And so if you're coming to pitches with no revenue, and even if you do have revenue, if it's not repeatable, then you're basically discredited to zero. And I think that that's like as true as it gets at this point. And so that's kind of the table stakes now, is having some real revenue that's recurring and or repeatable. And then I think the trend that I'm seeing in fundraising is these smaller rounds where the investor has an emotional connection to the business, it seems like. So like, and again, these are smaller rounds. I don't know how it is that, you've raised way more than I've raised. He's also raising more than I've raised. So I don't know.
I missed the beginning. How much has he raised?
He's done 20 to this company, and it sounds like he's about to close another 10 in
Yeah.
the next few weeks. But he's raised 100 million plus for his
Right.
past businesses. But again, different environment.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, the way that I've been working with founders is like really trying to focus on investor targeting as the top priority for how you get these things done. And then almost trying to make it more of a, again, this is early stage, but more of a personalized emotional connection. Like I think the best example of this is Yuli. I don't know if he's still here. He went off camera, but he's building something for children with autism and using VR. And so like going to, so our research project for 3 weeks is finding accelerators that are focused on autism, parents that have autistic children that also run a fund, like kind of going a layer deeper into investor targeting.
Yeah.
So I think that's the strategy going forward as a way to make it more easy.
I'm feeling that like you can get away with seed funding
Yeah.
by just telling a VR only story, but the VR market and the growth rate of it is too small for most institutional firms. And so they want a bigger story. And that's something like, even with revenue, even with product market fit, even with a category leadership position, it's not a big enough story, VR. It's just like, and the reason is they were burned in 2015 by a lot of their investments
Yeah.
in VR, and they've been waiting for the 3 years. It's only 3 years away. It's been happening for like 7 years, right? And it's still another. We just keep moving the goalpost, and so
it looks like
that I would say to everybody out there raising beyond seed, it's got to be a bigger story.
correct me if I'm
I have
wrong,
a
Linnea, but it seems like all the later stage VR companies I've seen have now reworded towards an AI story on the
I
on their-
have. I mean, I always was AI. It was always mood on demand. And that's why we asked people how you felt. And because we were building that framework, and we used our foundational investments so that we could update the product in real time. That's what we built when we launched. And it was a lot of effort, but it was always for that future. But yeah, but also beyond VR. It can't just be AI and VR because it's still too small of an install base. Right. And so you can see like when Rec Room, and they were at the peak of Quest, they were 3 million MAUs. When they expanded to mobile, they, scaled to 24, 25 million MAUs. Like there's definitely a cap even for the most successful products in VR right now. And then when you open up the marketplace and you kind of do it in an Atari 2600 way where there's a lot of low quality content and competing, it can actually potentially destroy the market like it did on the Atari 2600 because, the quantity versus quality, and people don't get the right stuff right away, they leave the platform, right? Which is what happened in the early days of the game console. So, and we're seeing that happening right now and how it's impacted everyone's numbers. So, yeah.
Are you
One
actually,
data-
are you, oh, sorry. I'm actually really curious about that point. I imagine this is in response to Meta just like opening up the consumer their store more. So you're actually seeing negative impacts from that, because I feel like it's been historically like a really big, you know, I think developers have really wanted it to be more open. You're seeing an inverse
Yeah,
impact.
but there's definitely, like, if you look at the history, like look up the Atari 2600, what they call the video game crash.
Mm.
And it was triggered by just flooding the market with too much content and not enough curation. And there's definitely a cost to that, where it can actually, like, too much low quality content can destroy the market as it's emerging, because people are just they try it once and they go meh, right? And they're not getting enough it so and there's no way to actually like rise above that with your marketing spend or anything in the current version. So it's definitely I think an interesting choice. You know, but historically we've seen where that has really gone wrong, right? And the ones who do it right know how to curate. Yeah.
Wanted to add a quick data point that today XR Health actually, they just launched their AI platform, and I saw all the was just being said about moving beyond XR into and extending it into an AI platform, and they also announced that they're going and launching some two-dimensional 2D screen components to that. So that was just one interesting data point that was today, specifically to those points, that as you grow, you have to move beyond XR to scale.
Yeah, it just, you won't be able to get Series B funding without a bigger growth strategy. It's just too small of a market. And that's the reality. And now that they've added more competition into a petite market, it's just not big enough, right? Unless you're bootstrapping, and that's okay. But if you're venture backed, it's got to be a bigger play.
Yeah, I was just thinking about what you mentioned about this kind of flooding the market with lower quality, and I actually, that's how I'm thinking about the whole behavioral health, how like how the funding has been pulled out because of that flooded lower quality.
Exactly.
And I'm really curious about this idea of that bigger story, because what we're seeing, the difference that makes the difference at this stage is distribution. And distribution is the biggest question, I think, for VR. And maybe in healthcare, it's a little bit easier because there are some roadmaps already built. But yeah, I'd be curious to kind of understand from what everybody got from this, from Shan and this whole conversation around distribution, of how do you communicate that in a way that shows that scale potential. And
yeah, I mean, I have a theory that's pretty controversial, but I don't know. So, you know, when I started working in the interwebs, everything was address based, right? And I worked at a mobile game company. We were some of the first downloadable apps on the Brew platform, which launched on Verizon. Prior to that, you had to type in an address and triple tap an address in on your mobile phone to get to our mobile game, multiplayer game. And it took another 8 years before it really scaled out to, there's an app for that. Want to sell your jewelry? There's an app for that. Need a car? There's an app for that. And so we've been operating that way, but I think apps are going to go away, and it's going to move to agent. So you're going to have an agent that you trust, that you've invested your time in, and you're going to say to that agent, I need a car. I'm feeling stressed out. And how do we survive in that scenario, right? Like, how do you, it'll be like Google AdSense, where like right now you want to run an ad, you just go and say, this is how much I have to spend, and this is the audience I want to hit, and here's my product, and here's my creative. And it brokers out that request. It simplifies it. I think that's where we're going to go soon. And the head-mounted displays are going to be much more voice interactive with that. and the agent will broker all that out on the back end. So there's existential risk for a lot of companies if you're not thinking about the tech layer in between that. If it's just app based and you don't have a technology layer in the middle of that mediating those, were, I feel like if we don't make moves within the next 3 years, the platforms can circumvent any of our requests, disintermediate it. And then what, and you can see, like, what are the platforms starting to do? They're starting to pump their own content, right?
So Nanya, are you suggesting that we make our apps more like API and machine readable friendly?
Yeah. And I'm also saying that instead of just connecting straight to the platform for identity, build an abstraction layer. Instead of even connecting directly to OpenAI, build an abstraction layer where you have your own logic in your own framework. Like, we have a context engine, we mediate the prompts, you know, and because that's going to be in a world where it becomes more agentic, what you're offering, right? So how do you feed stream? So if you architect even to think about, like, okay, my app is a customer of my platform, so our mobile app's a customer, could I architect in a way where Novo Bing could be a customer or Flow could be a customer as well, right? At least it's got me thinking about how to survive that transition.
So this is a move
It's like
from
SEO, but
SEO
even
to
embedded
agent
into
engine optimization.
We actually have,
and
we
then
actually,
It's just a concept, but I just feel like we're going to go there.
we actually have some evidence that there's been seeding of the training data with, like, so almost like the ads are embedded in the LLMs at this point, very early on. But that is one strategy. It kind of requires you to back up 3 steps. But
Yeah, and I just made a decision not to use a specific LLM because I know that they're focusing specifically ramping up mental health, and I don't want to feed my data into them
yep.
just yet. I'd rather work with someone more strategically at that level than help them learn and then cut me out, right? So it's kind of an interesting time, and I think it's going to be a little bit of a war between us against them, to be honest.
yeah, then yeah, I really like the point that you mentioned about like the future of advertising. Kind of like there is a war right now for the search, and the next will be the war for like advertising. So do you like foresee that like the agents will be like scraping and like sending you relevant information, and like we kind of like every application kind of like becoming like an advertising for like its community, and we don't need anymore to go to Google ads, Facebook ads, trying
Right.
to find
Yeah.
relevant audience. So
Yeah. And also,
okay,
but it's going to be based on a couple things, right? And this is something we're building right now. The first thing is you're only going to use an agent you trust, and you're not going to use multiple agents eventually because it's too much of an investment to have them learn about you, right? It's just kind of like, you know, you look at your banking stuff, right? You don't want to switch even your operator, your telephone company, because you've invested so much in it. And then, so trust is going to be a big thing. Do you think Facebook can ask people, how are you feeling today? Right? Like, so trust is actually, I think, an opportunity for someone smaller to grab. And then the other thing is the investment. Like, how do you get people to invest, developing a profile and a context with your agent? And then the third one is the incentives.
And I think there is a great opportunity, like kind of like the future jobs, when you don't need to use like recommendational systems, a lot of data, when people can actually work and build their own local ratings that you really trust, because like we trust our friends, we don't trust like the algorithms of booking.com or Google anymore. Yeah, there is a huge opportunity. Yeah, and like if these companies, like if for example Google or Facebook, they could pay to us for building like a more sustainable, like yeah, they should pay, but they're not gonna do this. That's why we need like
well, that's where the incentives can actually be super disruptive, because look, all the young people have grown up. You ask any kid, what do you want to be when they grow up? They say, I want to be an influencer, right? They want people sending
Yeah,
them
They
stuff.
want to be Mr. Beast. They want
Yeah,
to be they want to be the next Mr. Beast.
And so I think you're going to get to a point where these kids are going to grow up and they're going to say, hey, Meta, you want my data? You got to pay me. You want me to interact with your AI so it trains your models and makes you money? You got to pay me.
Yeah, that's exactly what Yatsu from Animoca is pitching. Do you know Animoca brands? Because like if you're from
Yeah,
game,
yeah.
but the thing is that I've heard the thesis like for the last 5 years on different Web3 conferences, but nobody is doing this, honestly. Most of the people from Web3 who are pitching this, they just want to get the audience
Well,
fast.
they don't know how to build. Yeah, they don't know how to...
Yes, they just want to pump their token fast, but they're not actually ready to build like the next advertising platform. So like this is like a great opportunity like to build the trust, to build like an ethical, the next Google Ads, trustworthy Google Ads. This is like a very big opportunity.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I'm looking at it, as that's the big story, right? Like the fact that Trip has been able to get gamer dudes to share their feelings with us, the least trusting cohort on it, right? Like, so that shows me that there's something there. And anyway, I would just advise you guys to play defense on this, because look at what just happened to a lot of consumer apps with the flood of competitive content, right? And it's not only in our category, it's like all categories. And so, and there's only one channel right now to make money on, and that has to change too. But it doesn't seem like it's happening anytime in the near future. So how do you survive, right? Anyway, these are my thoughts. I'm done. Thank you for attending.
No, like it's super interesting topic. It's my guys. It's my first time. It's my first time I stayed after the call. So and like I know I need to stay the next time more and more, because like this is exactly what I've been thinking like for the last years. Because like I'm tired of spam. I don't want to see this ads every day. They're all irrelevant, and like they're just like spamming us, and like we don't control our attention. That's like, and Facebook just wants to grab our attention and then like program us to make robots out of us. So we need to stop. Like the question is, like we all in this industry, what are we gonna do? What is the next step? So what can we do? Like, cause like we're just discussing this, but we're founders. We need to build. We need to do something with this. So this is a huge problem.
I'm definitely building in this area because it's also exciting and super a lot of opportunity to innovate. And
Nani, I will definitely follow up, because like it's kind of like one of the mission, like how to not lose attention. I have a lot. That's why I have an education as well. Thank you. Like very interesting talk. Don, you brought in amazing people here. Like we need to collaborate more.
It's the greatest group ever. I'm very, very happy. Linnea, it would be fun if you wanted to do an AI agents thesis talk about the future of AI in the next few months.
Yes,
I think that'd be cool.
Yeah.
we're launching real-time image gen imminently. What could go wrong with that with a bunch of gamers? Hang on to your seats.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so next week we have Mark Lanau coming to join us. He was my first ever venture partner when I was 22 years old. He was 25, and we were just like these two kids running around investing in VR. He runs a $30 million fund in LA now. And he also worked at Technicolor, and he's just hyper connected amongst VCs in LA. I think we're gonna do that one as a full Q&A. He's like very soft spoken, but one of my favorite people in the world, and like has always gone out of his way to help me. So I think try to think of things specifically that you need help with. I think he's probably like, out of everyone we brought from the investor side, he's the one that would like sit down and say like, okay, you know, Daron needs intros to LA people, and like he asked for this intro, and then he would actually go and do it. He's like really goes out of his way to be helpful. So try to think of things that he can help you with, and we'll do that conversation next week.
Bye, everyone. If I don't see you before, those of you in America, have a nice Thanksgiving. Bye.
Right on.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much, Don. Thank you, Nene.
Yep.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye, guys.
Hey Don, can I have a second of yours?
Yep.
I'm just I've sort of reached a turning point with my thing where I've spent the last 6 months figuring out if I could do flight in VR, and now I have a prototype that kids like. I've got it on the store. Do you have anything that you can tell me for sort of common pitfalls that I'm going to face over the next 6 months when I actually try to make money from it? I'm going to have skins within the next 2-3 weeks. Be trying to post as much on TikTok. Otherwise, it's things like I have friends who say they want to make art for it if I can pay them. I don't have money to pay them right now. Do I like start divvying up revenue that I generate so that I can figure out how to hire them so I can make more revenue?
What can you sell right now? If you had to sell something tomorrow, is it just a base subscription to use the app?
It's a free game. I would be able, if you gave me until like the end of the week, I'd be able to sell like a hat or something.
But I
But
mean,
right
like,
now,
what do you have built today that if you
Yeah.
had to charge me something right now and you could give it to me at the end of the day, what is that? It's the app?
I've got nothing yet.
But it is the app. I mean, what I'm getting at is you have something valuable that you're giving away for free currently, right?
Yes, it's the app. I played a lot of games like League of Legends, Counter-Strike when I was younger, and the way a lot of those work is they sell microtransactions.
Yeah.
And so right now the big draw for people is you learn how to fly, which is nice, but the big draw for people is that you get to chat with other people.
Mhm.
And so they dress up as various characters, ideally speaking, but I haven't built out any of that stuff yet. I'm building it right now.
The reason I'm asking that is because you
Mhm.
said you don't have the funding right now for things like artwork and stuff.
Yeah.
And so what I'm just thought exercise, I'm trying to understand if you never spent another dollar and we're super frugal, what could you already have that's valuable today that you could sell? And so I understand, that's not the model. You want to go free to play, but I'm just curious, like, is there any logic to selling what you've built and selling access to it as opposed to trying to build more and selling skins and hats and things like that?
I think the big thing that makes my game unique is that there's 500 Gorilla Tag clones on the market right now, and my one is inspired by Gorilla Tag, but the movement feels very different. So the gameplay itself is unique. There is nothing on the store like it, or if there are, they're worse, in my opinion. And I have the ability to get people to play the game and enjoy time in the game with their friends. I'm currently in the process of rebuilding the avatar because I didn't have legal access to it, and then selling various skins to see what works.
How is
But-
I know you just launched it, but how is like the
Mhm.
engagement so far?
Engagement is better than VR chat. So once I start marketing it properly, I think I will be getting people to show up. But I've had like a dozen people download it because I haven't put in any marketing whatsoever into it yet. But on VR chat, I had 3,000 views or something. Just looking at the numbers that Meta gives me, I am getting more people to like check out my store. Right now, my thumbnail is bad. So if I improve that, the downloads will get better, etc. But I have all of these levers, and I still need to finish porting the game, and I have a lot of things to think about. So I'm sort of curious. It's a lot easier for me to say I want to build a game about flying, which I have done, than for me to take the next step, which is I want to figure out how to turn this into an experience that people come back to, pay for, etc., and become a sort of lifestyle business.
So yeah, okay, that was my question. I was gonna say you want to make this more of an indie dev lifestyle type of company, correct? Not okay.
Ideally speaking, I can hire myself full-time, hire a few of my friends, contracting, and then maybe sell off the asset in a few years if I get to that point.
I could be wrong in this. You should fact check me. I don't know, but I feel like if you're gonna do a free to play model, those companies kind of fundamentally need cash up front to work. My logic there, again, I would fact check me. There's, see if you can find an example of free to play games that are out there that haven't had some sort of cash or funding up front. But I feel like you would fundamentally need cash to make that business model work because you're not really selling anything. And the amount of time it's going to take to probably get revenue from in-app sales, you got to get people highly engaged first. So my gut goes to, from a business model standpoint, I would try to sell what you built at a premium.
Okay.
And I think, okay, table that aside for right now. So do you have a group, community, Discord? Do you have anything like that that's growing right now, where you brought in like the VR chat people or anything like that and
In
captured?
VR chat, I have a group of like I think it's like 70 people or something. I can grow that group very quickly. I haven't putting in the manual effort to do it, but I can grow it quickly. And then I'm trying to send them to my Discord, which has about 50 people right now.
And is your game, how built out is it right now?
Like you can play multiplayer, or you can join multiplayer lobby with other people and fly around, but there's a lot of bugs within it that because I had to move everything from VR chat to its own platform, I'm having to rebuild a lot of the code. So that should all be done within the next 2-3 weeks. And then it's going to look like it does on VR chat, where it's a game mode where you can fly around, pop balloons, and the emphasis is on social interaction through the unique novel locomotion, which only my game has.
And how many people did you say have downloaded it so far, or played it on the store?
On the store, it's been about 10. So I need to
10. Okay. And so, okay, so you have, and have you talked to those 70 people that are in your VR chat group since launching on the store?
I have not yet. I've basically done zero work to put it out. That's exclusively from people seeing my store and then clicking on the download link and downloading.
Okay. If you were to sell the game, just again, thought exercise, if you were to sell the game for $19.99, how many weeks away are you from feeling comfortable doing that?
$19.99 meaning like 1,900 like price wise.
20 bucks. Are you 3 weeks away from where you'd feel comfortable that it's got as minimal amount of bugs that you could sell it for 20 bucks?
I think I would probably be like maybe like 2 months away if I was to try to sell it as a full standalone experience. Because I think on the VR chat level, I have a standalone experience that is fine, but I can't do matchmaking. I can't add new levels. I can't add skins. I can't do a lot of things that are restricted by VR chat. So if I was just to go to that level, it took me maybe like 2 weeks to a month. And then if I wanted to go beyond that to something that I would sell for like $20, I would sell that maybe like another month or two of edits and
How are you
whatnot.
currently getting the user feedback? What's your cycle for getting user feedback?
While I was working on VR chat, it would be I would go into a VR chat world, invite 10 people to come join the lobby, watch them play, and then like either invite them to one of my groups or just tell me. And in on the store itself, it's exclusively people in Discord who are giving me feedback, like my friends and family. And then they have a review system, which I want to start. I want to basically go to VR chat, do the same system I've done, get 100 people in my world to say, oh, I'm going to download the game, and then leave reviews.
Okay. I think what I would try, I mean, I guess, can you last 2 months without income from this? That would be, I guess, the fundamental.
Yes, I'm about to move in with my parents for a bit.
Okay. I think what I would do, see you, Patrick. Thanks for coming, bud. I think what I would do, Alex, is I would probably.
Sorry I was late, Don. I wanted to get here at the beginning. I'm burning it at both ends right now, so I got to get back to it.
No worries. The recording will be in school. Thanks for
I really
coming.
appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, good luck with it.
Thanks.
All right, Alex, I think what I would do is I would set a date that's 2 months out.
Okay.
So November, let's see, December 20th. For sake of conversation, I'd say January 20th is when we're launching the paid version.
Okay.
I would do exactly what you're doing already. Get your first 10, 20 people in there that are family and friends, friendly people that can just give you basic feedback and seed the feedback loop with their feedback. Like build out a little bit of a feedback system.
Okay.
And then I think immediately, like starting on Monday, I would go to those 70 people in VR chat and other people I could get access to directly. Um, and and incentivize them to give you feedback over the next few weeks to use it. So either, we'll give you the game for free so that you don't have to pay for it on January 20th, or whatever incentives you can think of.
Yeah.
They've already shown interest that they like the game because they're in your VR chat group, right? So like giving that to them for free
They
is
have told me that they'd be interested in buying skins. I don't know how much of that is a commitment because they're like children and whatnot.
Mhm. You're sold on this model of selling skins, it sounds like.
I've been seeing a lot of other right now, if I go to early access multiplayer games on a VR database, right? There's something like 400.
Yeah.
Of those, like a solid 200 of them are Gorilla Tag clones, where they took the Gorilla Tag movement code and they put it on like their own like brush of paint, and then they sell skins.
Yeah.
But if I look at a lot of games that are similar to the model I've been looking at, I don't know if you've tried Dust,
Mm-mm.
the Winged, etc. They all seem to be free to play with skins. I'm open to other models, and it's something that's worth considering at this point now. But just because all of the ones that I'm trying to copy are Yeeps, Penguin's Paradise, Gorilla Tag, Dust, which is like Overwatch with Gorilla Tag mechanics. All of them have the exact same models. So I was just going to copy them. But they also have teams, and they also have more fleshed out builds and all these other things. So
Dust, just DUST, Dust, correct?
yeah, I'm gonna copy their marketing because their guys started DMing me.
It's the action shooter, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so like this is kind of, so they have 75 reviews.
Okay.
So let's assume they have, if you get 75 reviews, I'd say probably they have
Probably
10,000
significantly less.
10,000. I think 10,000 users is generous.
Okay.
I think that's probably an overshot because some of these reviews I'm sure are them getting their friends and buddies to just review. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is like, is Dust make, I understand you want to copy their business model, but are they making money would be my question. Like, are they making good enough money to sustain the business? Based on that, I'm not sure. What's another one of the businesses you were comparing?
I mean, if you look in the top 10 free multiplayer games on Quest, it's Yeeps Hide and Seek, which is made by 3 high schoolers who had made games before for the Quest platform, and they're backed by Speedrun A16Z. So might be a tough competition. It's Gorilla Tag, it's Penguin's Paradise, which is
So let's go through one on one because I think it's a good thought
Sure,
exercise.
sure.
This is kind of what I was saying earlier. So Yeeps,
Yeah.
awesome, 62,000 reviews. That's ridiculous.
I'm not going to be Yeeps. I get
Incredible.
that.
Right, it's incredible, right? So, but I think the fundamental thing about the free-to-play business model is that you either have cash up front
Mhm.
or you hit a rocket ship and take off on users.
Okay. So how would switching to like a paid game change what my like if I wanted to be free to play, I have to aim for one of those two things. If I wanted to switch to a $20 paid game, what would I be aiming at instead? Just how much marketing hits I can get, or
I think it's easier. What's your game called? Let me look it up real quick.
balloon bats?
I got what I'm trying to think through
Mhm.
is what's the easiest way to get to 10K a month of revenue? I feel like that's the number where it's like this is a great asset to own.
Yeah.
It's like that pays for a lot of stuff. And like if everything else in life went wrong, like having that is great, you know? So that's how I would try to think about this.
Okay.
I think
You can be as harsh as you want.
no, I'm trying to find. I
stop
can't
it.
find balloon bats on Google or on MetaQuest. Links in school. Let me go get it.
I hope the link works.
No, I think you put it in school, right? I mean, because I had looked at it.
Yeah, I put it there.
All right, cool. Oh no, you don't have the link in the post.
How do I not? I can post it in the chat on the Zoom. Read AI.
What I'm trying to understand here is like, is there an opportunity to create is there an opportunity to make 10K a month without having to go and get thousands of users? Is what I'm trying to figure out here.
Yes.
Um,
From this point that I started, I basically just did a copycat idea of, hey, these games are successful. I know I can make a game that's similar in quality to these games because they're not like, you know, AAA PC or whatever. And that's got to me up to this point. But up beyond now, it's up for me to like say like, if it really isn't going to become the free to play, the next Penguin's Paradise or whatever, where it's a 15-year-old making millions, which, you know, fine, it might be. It's up for me to define my business model now, but it's just been the what I've been going on so far.
I think you gotta you gotta figure out if that's what you want or not, because
what I want would be the free to play, go wild and viral, be the next Yeeps Penguin's Paradise. I don't know how realistic that is.
But okay, is that what you want though? Because you said you want to build a lifestyle business. That is what you want to do.
I don't know what the definition of a lifestyle business is, but my understanding was that it was basically a business that supported the lifestyle of a small team. I think I may be misunderstanding that a little bit.
Yeah, but you said Yeeps is backed by Andreessen Horowitz.
Yeah, they're not big, but Penguin's Paradise is top 10 games. It's very similar to Gorilla Tag and Yeeps. It does have the advantage of having come out earlier, but it's made by a 15-year-old and his dad. I feel like I could beat a high schooler. I mean, it's that was the thought I had 6 months ago, and now it's still a big game, and there's 500 other Gorilla Tag clones to compete with.
1 second, just looking through there.
Yeah. Do you ever play games, or you're always just busy working?
Not anymore, not really.
Okay.
All right, Sava Studios is their business.
Speedrun and what's his name? Arian Gesh guy. I think he spoke a couple weeks ago. They were all putting out that as like an example of, hey, the next big thing in VR is going to be social VR based around novel forms of locomotion using your arms. And I think I've built that. So then the question for me is, how much do I want to invest in it being like big versus how much do I want to just say, all right, this was a cool prototype I did. Let me sell it off, make a little bit of money, try to get a job, something like that. If I can get it to be the next Counter-Striker, Dota, or whatever for VR, I would love that because I have a ton of hours on those types of games, and I'd love to build my own. But obviously, that's the top fantasy, etc. So.
1 second, I'm looking through the LinkedIns of the 4 people that are listed on Sava Studios, which is the people that built Penguin.
Also, if you are busy, I do have to head out in like 5 minutes anyways.
Okay.
Okay, now on their website, it looks like they have 6 people. One's a content creator, one's moderator, etc. And they did start like years ago. So that's probably why they're so successful.
Yeah. They only released it. No, that can't be right. All right. I mean, here, I'll give you what I would do if I were you, and I don't know if it's the right move or not. I would try to basically build a very strong following around you and your community and your early product. And I would do that through 2 months of testing and intense like feedback sessions, and just basically find the people that are believers in the vision and the product. And I think I would say something like, I'm not sure how big this can get. If it ends up getting really big, then I would want to bring all of, the early believers that are helping me test this on as devs or whatever it is to the company.
They already exist. They want to be moderators in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So I think I would try to like get as many of those types of believers on your team as possible. And personally, I would shoot for selling the game probably on a subscription for $20 a month starting January 20th. And I would do everything over the next 2 months to figure out what does it take to validate that value to the people that would be paying the $20 a month.
How much experience do you have in gaming specifically versus VR? Because I want to listen to your perspective, but I also want to, part of me pushes back. So
yeah, again, this is what I would try. I don't know. I don't think it's right or know if it's right. Yeah. I would do the $20 a month, and I would do it super unscalable, extremely hand-to-hand tactics. Like even to the point where it's like I would use Stripe as the subscription. I wouldn't bother taking the extra time to integrate with Meta, and I would just like give them codes to use the game. You know what I mean? Like I would just I would make this as scrappy as possible and just focus on how can I get to the point of 5K a month of subscriptions and do that purely through just hustle. And then I would reanalyze. I think if you want to do the more traditional, venture back game, then you gotta do the free to play, and you gotta test some sort of bundle of skins.
Okay.
But again,
So if I do want to go down the free to play route, so the next 2 months, I finish the port, I put in all the features, I decide whether I want to do either free to play or go to $20 a month for the next like 5-6 months. If I do want to go to free to play route, it means I probably do have to bring on venture backing just so I can pay for artists, server costs, marketing, etc. Am I hearing you right?
I guess how else maybe not, but how else would you pay for that would be my question.
I have like a bunch of like extremely loose commitments from friends who are like, yeah, I want to help you. Here would be my rate. Your friends and family, so I would give you a lower rate. And I could figure out things on the fly, which is sort of how I've always done things. But I think fundamentally, I'm not a very good planner, which is starting to become an ongoing problem for my company. So I sort of work on things that are in front of me, and I get them done, and I don't really think too far ahead into the way, which is good for prototyping. But now that I'm starting to get into bigger things, I haven't really thought ahead.
So how would you pay for it is my question, if you didn't raise some sort of funding?
Like, for example, right, I need to get an avatar. I need to pay someone on VR chat or something to make an avatar for me. And the prices I've seen are about $500. Something like that I could borrow from friends and family. And they're happy to support me because they think this is my big shot of like, getting into the metaverse industry, etc. So smaller things like that, if it's just one avatar, a few assets, etc., I can.
How much can you sell that avatar for?
The skins in games like Gorilla Tag are about like $5 each. And then you expect that about 5% of the player base buys a skin. And it's overwhelmingly whale driven. So you have a small percentage of users who basically are your super fans, spend all their mom or dad's credit card.
I know, I understand, but
sure. I'm rambling.
You're talking about general. You have one avatar that you paid $500 for. There's no whales to buy multiple avatars.
No. Yeah, you're right. I need an avatar just as a default avatar, and then each of the skins are significantly less work to develop because it's just instead of trying to rig an entire body.
The rigged avatar or anything.
Yeah, I'm basically saying in 2 months, I want to be at the point where I have to decide what my business model is and what are the next 2 months for. I have to figure out the avatar. I have to figure out all of this stuff. I've gone from the point where I can do everything manually myself to the point where I have to scale. And
Can you sell colorful wings as a skin with like? Can you skip the avatar and start selling skins for the wings or something?
For example, one of the things that people have actually asked to pay for is you have little lines that follow your hands while you fly. So it's sort of like colors behind you, and people have asked for different colors.
When you drop, you can
buy. So that's a very easy. I changed one hexadecimal code, and I have a new color, and that's something I can sell. You think I should just start with that?
Frick yeah. Are you kidding?
That's
save
the
you
better idea.
$500. Of course.
Okay, that's okay. So I should start with the smallest possible item that I could possibly sell. See if it.
What did that guy just tell us? He's done so much in business, and one of his top 2 things he said was be frugal. That was literally one of his top 2 things he came up with as advice. So yeah, do not spend the 500. If you can generate money by changing a pixel color, whatever, yes, like 100% try to sell that.
Okay.
And make it your goal to sell 100 of those at $5 so that you now have money to pay for the avatar if you still want to do that, and like build it like that, I think, if you're gonna do it.
I think this helped me a lot because I was thinking like, oh, what are all the big things that I want to contract out? But really I should focus on what's the smallest thing I can sell. Okay, so this helped me a lot. Okay, thank you.
And that's what I was saying. I know you got to go, but that's what I was trying to understand at the beginning was what is it that if you had to sell me something right now, that I could buy? That's the question you should be asking yourself because you don't want to build more, you want to sell more. That's what you got to focus on. Sell more.
Okay. All right.
The more you sell, the more you can build. It doesn't go the other way. It does not go the other way. It leads to bankruptcy if you build more before you sell.
All right. I'm gonna be spending. My family lives in Thailand. So I'm gonna be spending 2 months with them, trying to do the digital nomad thing, or really they're supporting me. So whatever. But anyways, once I come back, hopefully I'll come back with some good ideas for what I want to do for my business.
To keep doing what you're doing, but tweet this stuff out. You have no idea how lucky you can get, especially if you're gonna go do the nomad stuff. That's like great branding. I would definitely just tweet every day as much as you can while you're doing that.
Okay. I kind of got distracted on Twitter during the politics season because that's what I was originally interested in. So I need to get back into it.
It got fairly distracting, I agree. But it's over, and just tweet all the progress you're making every day you can.
Okay.
Talk about the nomad life. You might get really lucky because people love that on Twitter. X.
All right. Thanks for the help. I think I've got a new perspective.
Yep. Sell.
We'll do.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Good luck. Keep us posted in school. Post in there when you get something you can sell.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Bye.